The big headline news in the real estate world this week is that Rocket Companies, most commonly known as Rocket Mortgage, is purchasing Redfin for $1.75 billion. And as a DIY homebuyer advocate, I want to talk about what does an acquisition like this mean for homebuyers and consumers more generally. So that's what we're going to dive into. We'll talk a bit about the history of Redfin, talk about why Rocket Mortgage might want to acquire Redfin, and really think about what does this mean for the industry. If you're new here, my name is Nick. I am the host of the DIY Homebuyer Podcast. I believe that most people have the competence to purchase a home on their own, but they lack the confidence to do so. And the best way to give that confidence and empowerment is through education. So if this is something that you are into, well, please do subscribe to the show, leave me a review, and anything that you do to share it with a home buying friend or somebody that you think would be interested in the kind of topics I talk about, that means the world to me. So let's go ahead and dive in. I want to talk about Redfin first because Redfin came onto the scene in 2004 is when they launched, and they really set out to disrupt the real estate industry, which means that they're my kind of people from the very get-go. They recognized that commissions were artificially high and were functionally fixed at 6% across the United States, that sellers and buyers really had very little ability to negotiate those fees lower. And so they wanted to create a model where it made it cheaper to sell a home, less expensive to buy a home. They basically wanted to reduce transaction fees, but they also wanted to change the customer experience because they saw that commission-based selling, especially on the buyer side, created weird and unfortunate dynamics between home buyers and the agent that they're supposed to trust. So Redfin recognized this back in 2004, and they said, you know what? Rather than make our agents work on commission, we're going to set up a model where we salary our agents so that they're getting a paycheck for doing good customer service, taking care of their clients, and their compensation is not tied exclusively to their outcomes, that is, closings. And it really was a revolutionary model. Now, as with so many things where businesses or ideas have entered into the real estate market and tried to offer an alternative or be disruptive, the real estate industry on the whole shut it down. I mean, obviously you can argue, well, Redfin has made it 21 years, but they've had to make a lot of modifications to their business model. And frankly, nowadays they recognize more of a traditional brokerage than they do like this real revolutionary alternative. And that's because Redfin agents were finding that they were getting blacklisted from the markets that they operated in. Other local realtors, brokerages refused to work with them because they saw the threat that Redfin was creating to the status quo of the 6% commission. And so they would besmirch the Redfin name and label them as a discount brokerage, not full service. You're not going to get top dollar for your home. You're not going to find all of the best home, whatever. They would just talk very badly about Redfin agents and Redfin services, usually just being slanderous, like making up accusations against Redfin as a company. Over the last few years, especially, Redfin has moved away from the salaried agent structure. They're looking a lot more like a traditional brokerage where agents do get paid a commission. They've had to increase some of their fees. They've modeled some of what Zillow does, where they'll pair you up with what they call a Redfin partner agent. So that's not necessarily somebody that works for the Redfin brokerage, but it's somebody that's paying Redfin for leads of home buyers that come to the Redfin site. If if there aren't enough Redfin agents, or if Redfin doesn't feel like they'll have a good enough margin on the home, then they would refer you as the home buyer to this partner agent that might work for a totally different brokerage and have a totally different fee structure. So really what Redfin has become is just a highly recognizable tech platform, kind of the number two to Zillow when it comes to home searches and home buyers doing their own research. And frankly, I love the Redfin website. I think that their user interface is awesome. I think that the market research and data that they have available to home buyers is incredibly helpful. It's a site that I use all the time, and one that I recommend in the DIY Homebuyer Essentials course that people use, because it is so user friendly. You do get such great property history and information, but really that's the number one asset that they own. It's not the agents, it's not the brokerage. The agents and the brokerage have actually been losing money as the market has turned in the last couple of years. Redfin has not been able to find ways to stay profitable, and so they've got this amazing website and a ton of data, but they haven't been able to leverage it for profitability in the same ways that like a Zillow has, which made them obviously a very attractive asset to Rocket Mortgage. So let's turn our attention now to why in the world would Rocket Mortgage or Rocket companies want to purchase Redfin? And the thing to know about Rocket Mortgage is that they are the largest home mortgage originator in the United States. I think they do somewhere. Don't you can fact check me on this. It's over 300 billion. I think it's like 320 billion dollars a year in loan originations that they do. So big time player, and for them, the main way that they have gotten customers in the past has been direct to consumer, but over the last couple of years, it has picked up the amount of business that they're getting from like referral partners, that is, other agents that refer clients to Rocket. But as Rocket wants to both protect and expand their market share, they're looking over at Zillow, and Zillow is trying to create the super app, which is like the one-stop shop for home buying and home selling. And so Zillow is launching their own mortgage products. They're partnering with title companies. They really want it to be that you find your home, you find your agent, you find your lender, you find your home inspector, your title company, everything that you need all on the Zillow app. And the more that they can integrate, the more money they can make. And Rocket looks at that both as a threat and as like, hey, that's kind of a brilliant business model. And so with Redfin being the number two place on the internet that people go to search for homes, Rocket looks at that as, hey, this would be a great opportunity to catch home buyers earlier in their home buying process, or in the search, because most people will go to a Redfin or a Zillow before they'll talk with a lender just to see what's even out there and to use the built-in calculators. So Rocket is thinking like, all right, we'll be able to catch home buyers earlier on in the process. We'll be able to put everything that's on the Redfin website that drives traffic to Rocket Mortgage. Anybody that works with a Redfin agent or a Redfin partner agent, we can create specials and spiffs for those folks to then also work with Rocket Mortgage. And basically for them, it's an amazing way to drum up more and more business. The other piece of it is that the amount of data that Redfin has collected over 20 years is mind-boggling. Like, it's more zeros than I even know how to count when it comes to the actual like bytes of data. And so what Rocket now has access to when it comes to buyer behaviors, searches, market information, just what are the things that home buyers care about most, and where are the best spots to interject advertising for lending. Rocket now owns all of that, and that's incredibly valuable. So even though Rocket companies paid by most people, by most economists that I've listened to would say that Rocket way overpaid for Redfin. When you think about all of the infrastructure, all of the data, the amount of web traffic, and when you think about what Rocket Company's goals are, I mean, this is a bargain for them at 1.75 billion. I think it'll be much like where people thought Facebook was crazy paying $1 billion for Instagram, and now it looks like the deal of the century. I have a feeling that in 5+ years, people will look back and see that, whoa, Rocket bought Redfin at a massive discount. I can't believe that it sold for just 1.75 billion. And of course, the goal is that there's greater vertical integration for home buyers that go onto Redfin's site, that they will see the convenience of just using what is available to them through Redfin, through Rocket, and through any other affiliated businesses that they either partner with or develop. Now, what is my concern for consumers with all of this? Well, whenever there's a big merger like this, it rarely ever works out in the benefit of consumers. It usually is always good for one of the businesses. I shouldn't even say usually. It sometimes is good for one of the businesses like Rocket, but it's good because it reduces competition. Like in Rocket's mind, any home buyer that was working with a Redfin agent could still go and use any lender anywhere in the US. Well, now Rocket has the corner on all of those home buyers. And if they can drive more traffic to people using Redfin agents or Redfin partner agents, then they have a better chance of also capturing those home buyers for home loans. So it reduces competition. And of course, basic economics is that wherever competition is reduced and when industries become more monopolistic, it is worse for consumers. Like the quality of service generally goes down, the cost of service generally increases. And I believe this is especially the case in home buying. Now, yes, I am obviously the advocate for DIY home buying, self-representation, not using a buyer's agent. But I think that people get confused and think that, oh, well, DIY home buyers are just cheap. They don't want to pay for professional services. And I think that this is a misnomer we really need to correct. As we think about just a DIY mentality, like most DIY home buyers, if you're needing a loan, like you're you're not going to DIY the loan process. Like you can't. You do need to go through a lender in order to get approved and qualified for a loan and to go through the whole underwriting process. Similarly, with a home inspection, like I don't care how savvy you are, how well you know houses, having another set of eyes that you have hired and vetted, that you trust, to have them go and look through a house, give you an official report, the way that you're able to then leverage that report to get repairs. Like those are really important and valuable services to have. Even hiring a real estate attorney, if you're concerned about the legalities of a contract or any of the process, to have an actual attorney that's able to help guide you through it. We see the value in those things. And more than that, we see the value in having the very best people that we know and that we trust. And that's my big concern with like a Rocket Redfin combo. I've worked with Rocket before, and it's basically a call center mortgage company. Like you never have a real relationship with your mortgage lender. They are doing such a high volume of loans. And that's why oftentimes they will have some of the most competitive rates, is because they're working at a volume basis. But when they're doing such high volume, when they don't have any sort of a personal relationship or connection to you, that's where mistakes get made. Serious headaches come about in the closing process. It's also where they have a lot greater limitations to tailoring the very best loan product to you, or if you have kind of a unique situation with your finances, whether through self-employment or multiple income streams, or you're trying to do things with a few different family members, like Rocket, they just, that's not their bread and butter. They don't really have the capacity, nor do they want to be bogged down with having to come up with creative solutions for you, or having to dig into what is the very best possible scenario for you. They just want to run you through their process and system, because the more loans they can complete and originate, the more profitable they become. So having somebody that you know, that you trust, that you can meet with in person is incredibly valuable. And the same goes with title companies or home inspectors. Like, being able to curate your own dream team is the very best way to buy a house. And now some of those professionals might be more expensive than using Rocket's all-in-one system, where you're using a Rocket/Redfin agent plus Rocket lender plus Rocket's eventual title company, and one of their preferred inspectors. Like, I'm sure there would be incredible discounts for using all of those people, but you always have to ask, at what cost are those discounts coming? And I would way rather have the ability to handpick my team of dream professionals and pay a little bit of a premium for some of those folks, because I know they're going to do good work. And usually that comes back around in greater savings in the long run, having people that are really working hard for you. And I'm sure that there's somebody listening to this and says, well, like, isn't that true of real estate agents? And in some cases, yeah, it probably is. Like, there are some unbelievable real estate agents that have phenomenal connections, or they're just such master negotiators that they may actually be able to justify the fees that they charge. But that's really the question that I just want all DIY home buyers, or anybody who's even considering this process, to think about, is just, okay, who are the professionals that I'm getting in my corner? What are their fees? And what is the relative benefits that I get as the consumer to those fees? And really, the simplest way to think about it is, does this professional provide more value to the transaction than what they extract? It's the number one thing that you just always have to ask yourself whenever you're working with somebody is, what kind of value am I getting in return for the money that this person is being paid? And I just believe that good business is where the value that you receive as the consumer always outweighs what you're actually having to pay for that service. And if the value doesn't outweigh what the professional is providing, then you should learn to do it yourself. And for most people, when they think about the value that a realtor provides versus what they'd be able to do themselves, most people, I think, will determine, yeah, I'll learn to do it myself. Now, I got a few thoughts. I'll wrap this up here, but just a few consumer cautions as relates to Rocket, Redfin, Zillow, the super app. And I've talked about this on other episodes and other videos that I've done. But with any app like Zillow, Redfin, you have to recognize that those apps are created and they're free for you to use. And they are free for you to use because you are not the customer of Redfin or Zillow. You are the product. And this is especially so in Zillow. And I think it's going to become more the case as Rocket purchases Redfin and makes changes there, where the real value that you bring to these platforms is your information and the fact that you are a motivated home buyer or home seller. And these platforms have realized that they can leverage your consumer data and information and sell that for big dollars. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars on a transaction that Zillow or Redfin gets when you choose to work with one of their preferred or partner agents. And so it is highly valuable. You are highly valuable to them, and they sell you to real estate professionals. And you just need to be aware of that when you're on those platforms, that yes, they do provide a lot of real value for free and you should use them, but you should also be aware of the fact that you're constantly going to be getting inundated with messaging from these apps and platforms that are trying to get you to work with their people. And they make that seem very convenient and helpful, but honestly, that's where like their fee structure comes in. And so when you choose to work with a Redfin agent or a Zillow preferred partner, those agents aren't going to have much room to negotiate their commissions or to give you any sort of a break, because they're giving such a huge percentage of their commission as it is to Zillow or Redfin as part of the referral agreement that they have together. So once you actually take the next step with those platforms and start working with one of those partners, that's usually where you start paying more for what I've generally seen as lousier services. I want for consumers to be aware that on Zillow, Redfin, you are the product, not the customer. And that when it comes to your home buying journey, you should resist the vertical integration of super companies where you just use all of the people that they tell you to use, because you're going to get crappier service. It might seem like you're getting a little bit of savings here or there, but in general, you're being pushed down pipelines by people that don't really know you or see your situation or aren't actually working for your best interest. They're just working to close a deal. So I do always encourage, just build your own dream team of real estate professionals, and that is going to be the smoothest and the best way to buy a home. And I ultimately believe that while there might be a little bit higher costs to some of those professionals up front, it's going to be worth it in the long run. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, down in the comments. Let me know what you think about this Redfin-Rocket acquisition merger. Also, if you want to connect further with me, there are links in the description to do so. I've got a free 5 strategies to save you $5,000 or more on your next home. So do be sure to grab that. And one final reminder, please do subscribe to the show, and I'll see you in the next one.